Young LGBTQ say condoms are an afterthought and other surprising behaviors on sex. In Oxford, students at the University of Mississippi encounter an overflowing bowl of condoms at their gym's entrance, yet few take the initiative to grab one. According to Magan Perry, president of the Public Health Student Association, quote, using a condom is just a big no, end quote. The growing disinterest in condom use among both straight and queer students reflects a broader trend, as medical advancements and shifting attitudes contribute to fewer young people opting for protection. Dr. Josephine Cherabie, medical director of the St. Louis HIV Prevention Training Center, explains that past condom ads instilled fear, whereas current discussions focus on personal preferences. Despite fewer teens engaging in sexual activity, those who do are less likely to use condoms, with young adults aged 15 to 24, who is now accounting for all of the new STI cases in 2022. Half of those, actually. Sex education also plays a critical role, with Mississippi's restriction on comprehensive curriculum leading to rising STI rates. Despite medical advancements like PrEP and Doxycycline post-exposure prophylaxis, experts emphasize that condoms remain vital. Dr. Bradley Stoner from the CDC says, quote, we know that condom use has declined among some groups, but they still have an important role to play in STI prevention. Condoms can be accessed without navigating the healthcare system, can be used on demand, are generally affordable, and most importantly, they are effective at preventing HIV and STIs when used consistently and correctly, end quote. Sexual health advocates suggest that the University of Mississippi is just an example of what happens among LGBTQ young people across America. As attitudes evolve and new prevention methods gain popularity, the discussion around safe sex and condom use continues to be a pressing concern for those public health advocates. One of the things I looked at, which down here in Broward, and I look at Broward County in our health department, and I was pulling a report recently, and Q3, I found what was interesting is they distributed 665,065 condoms in Broward County during Q3. And as we continue to hear our youth, we've had our own problems in Florida with our education system pulling, this discussion out of the schools. So it's a yin and yang, and when it comes to that, and as we've seen, education is so critical. We've got young people as parents that haven't learned that themselves, and it's got to be. We've got to learn to start pressing and more. As I go out and outreach, and it's like I was at a community event recently, and it was a bunch of, I would say, older generation of Black women that were there, and they were coming up, and we were giving out HIV kits. They're like, "Oh, we don't need that," and I'm like, "Do you have any grad kids?" "Oh yeah." "How old are they?" "Teenagers." "Oh, have you talked to them about sex?" And because they're not going to listen to their mom, but they'll listen to their grandma. And I think those are just important things we need to keep reminding people, because this tells a very true story of what we've continually seen.
I also think that there's been a very big shift in how the media, both mainstream and the adult media, represent condom use. When we think about kind of TV shows and movies and even porn, condoms were everywhere, and the discussion of safety that happened at the beginning, and even in comedy movies, with the wallet and or with the condom in the wallet, and how long that had been there. When there was, I think, a lot of fear around HIV, I would probably guess that our condom usage was at the highest. But I think that it's at a time for some of these media, both mainstream and adult, to really bring that in. Because so many teens and younger people find out what they know about sex from media or Pornhub or anything like that. And now you can't find one of those videos where they're actually being safe. I think 97% of videos is really presenting unsafe sex. So there was an abdication of responsibility that happened there that I hope that we can bring back.
I think the suppression of sex as a conversation has really done us harm. The conservative viewpoint that, we shouldn't talk about these things. We shouldn't talk about them to the youth,
Mm-hmm.
has now exacerbated a culture that promotes sex everywhere.
Right.
Our music, hell, you go inside the grocery store and
Right.
it's damn near sexual. But yet we suppress the real conversation that needs to be had. And then you get this, you get the mindsets of folks who honestly don't believe it can happen to them. You know, they don't believe that, and they don't know the statistics. They
Right.
don't know the data. Right now, we're having a syphilis crisis in
Right.
America. Impulse Group, you go back again.
Yep.
If you go to Impulse Group, if you go to our Instagram, we have a campaign right now about syphilis effing America, because the percentages after COVID, because people were doing what they did in COVID,
Right.
the high, I guess, sexual activity has presented itself as syphilis is running rampant in America. And this is also perpetuated on the idea that PrEP has been
That it's magical,
that is
and that it protects against everything.
It's been replaced. Condoms have been replaced by the mindset that now PrEP is here,
Right.
and so I'm protected from HIV, but I'm not protected. But
No.
they don't understand that you're not protected from everything else,
Right.
and that you can get everything else simply by oral,
Right.
simply by semen or pre-cum getting on you. And even me saying these things, I know if some people would turn in their stomachs just to hear
Absolutely.
those things. But everybody's 90% of America is what? Doing the do.
And Jamal, I think they're so trusting too, that just because somebody says that they're on it means that they're on it, and that somebody has the proper habits to be taking it at the right frequency, at the right dose to actually be protected. You can have a prescription for it and not be using it correctly, but they're just trusting each other out
Right.
there.
You know, I had this conversation at the beach yesterday. I'm always talking about sex. I had this conversation at the beach yesterday, and one of my main points was we live in a sexually illiterate society, but everybody gets to use it.
Absolutely.
You know, everybody gets to use it. Like, if we put it on a scale of are you smarter than a fifth grader, usually with sex, you aren't. Like, usually that's where it comes down to. And then we get stories like this.
Right.
And then we also get conservative movements that try and suppress sexual education and promote this abstinence view, or just don't tell them about it. And they're going to be curious about their bodies. We are we are naturally curious about our own bodies and the pleasure that we can inflict on it. So,
And how many conversations do we have with youth that view it's just oral, it's not sex? And it's just like, you know, just talking to even adults, have you had an oral swab in your mouth or a swab of any other than just a urine test? They're like, no, why would I? And I'm like, because you
put things.
it's where you receive it.
I found it really interesting that the story, you know, itself talks about from the University of Mississippi perspective, and the fact that there's an LGBTQ plus presence, and that they had the mindset to put a bowl of condoms, you know, at this university. So, you know, and it kind of speaks volumes in terms of, you know, what we're doing with our own state here. Whereas, like, you know, you have to not even say gay anymore in some of these universities, and they're taking away our freedom of speech. So it's just very fascinating to see the from one state to another in the South, no less.
And what really grinds my gears is that, to your point, these youth, University of Mississippi, have found the need and filled in the need in the ways in which they can do so. But we have major suppression coming from usually conservative viewpoints on the advocacy of health.
Right.
It's
part.
weird. It's weird.
It's hypocritical.
It's hypocritical of actually taking care of your body and taking care of yourself, of what consenting adults naturally do on a routine basis.